Dr. Alex Thorne stepped off the shuttle onto the shimmering surface of Zorath Prime, his boots sinking slightly into the iridescent moss that carpeted the landing pad. The air hummed with an otherworldly energy, thick with the scent of blooming crystal flowers that pulsed like living jewels under the twin suns. As a renowned xenobiologist from Earth, Alex had traveled to countless worlds, but Zorath was unlike any other, a planet where biology and technology intertwined seamlessly, where the very architecture breathed and grew. Towering spires of organic crystal rose into the sky, their facets refracting light into rainbows that danced across the landscape. He adjusted his environmental suit, feeling the subtle pull of the planet's gravity, a gentle reminder that he was far from home. His mission was diplomatic as much as scientific, to foster relations between humanity and the Zorathians, a matriarchal society ruled by queens whose lineage traced back to ancient cosmic nomads. Little did he know that this visit would entangle him in a destiny more intimate and perilous than any interstellar treaty. The Zorathians greeted him with a procession of elegant figures, their skin shifting hues like liquid mercury, adapting to emotions and environments. At the forefront stood Queen Lyrael, her presence commanding the very air around her. She was a vision of ethereal power, tall and lithe with elongated ears that twitched like antennae, adorned in flowing robes woven from bioluminescent threads. Her eyes, deep violet pools flecked with stardust, met his with a mixture of curiosity and regal detachment. "Welcome, human emissary," she intoned, her voice a melodic resonance that vibrated through his translator implant. "We honor your kind's pursuit of knowledge. Tonight, we shall affirm our alliance through the rite of harmony." Alex bowed respectfully, his heart quickening not just from the formality but from an inexplicable draw to her aura. She exuded a magnetism that was both alien and profoundly familiar, like a forgotten melody stirring in his soul. The ceremony took place in the grand atrium, a vast chamber where walls of living vine pulsed with inner light, forming intricate patterns that told the history of the Zorathian Empire. Delegates from both worlds gathered, humans in crisp uniforms contrasting the Zorathians' fluid garments. The rite involved a shared elixir, a ceremonial beverage symbolizing unity, harmless, or so Alex had been briefed. As he raised the crystalline goblet to his lips, the liquid shimmered with an inner glow, tasting of starlit nectar and faint spice. Queen Lyrael drank opposite him, her gaze locking onto his in a moment that stretched eternally. But then, chaos erupted. A low hum built to a deafening roar as hidden devices, sabotage from rival factions within the Zorathian court, detonated, unleashing waves of unstable bioenergy. The atrium convulsed, vines whipping wildly, crystals shattering into prismatic shards. Instinct took over. Alex lunged forward, shielding Lyrael from a surging bolt of energy that arced toward her. Their bodies collided, and in that instant something ignited, a surge of warmth that coursed through his veins like liquid fire. The energy enveloped them, binding their forms in a cocoon of light. He felt her essence brush against his mind, a fleeting touch of thoughts and emotions, surprise, gratitude, and then a profound connection snapping into place. The sovereign bond, an ancient Zorathian ritual long thought dormant, had been triggered accidentally. Meant for deliberate unions between compatible mates, it forged unbreakable links, emotional, mental, and biological. As the chaos subsided, Alex pulled back, dazed, his skin tingling where it had touched hers. Lyrael's eyes widened in horror, her skin flushing to a stormy indigo. "What have you done?" she whispered, but the words carried no accusation yet, only bewilderment. In the days that followed, Alex immersed himself in his research, studying Zorathian flora in the palace labs. The bond lingered like an echo, occasional flashes of Lyrael's emotions filtering through, flickers of stress from court intrigues, an undercurrent of warmth when she thought of the ceremony. He dismissed them as after effects, focusing on his work. The planet's ecosystems were mesmerizing. Forests where trees communicated via neural networks, rivers that sang healing frequencies. Yet, beneath the wonder, tension brewed. Whispers among the Zorathian staff hinted at unrest, Queen Lyriel had enemies, factions who sought to undermine her rule by exploiting old traditions. Alex paid little heed, until a summons arrived 2 weeks later. Escorted by guards whose armor shifted camouflage like chameleons, he was led to the throne room, a cavernous hall where the throne grew from a massive crystal trunk, its branches forming a canopy overhead. Lyriel sat upon it, her posture rigid, ears flattened against her head, a sign of distress he'd learned from his studies. Her skin had darkened to a deep crimson, betraying anger and something deeper, perhaps fear. The room was empty save for a few trusted advisors, their expressions grave. "Dr. Thorne," she began, her voice steady but laced with steel. The rite of harmony was no mere formality. The sabotage awakened the sovereign bond in its fullest form, a depth reserved for eternal mates. It has consequences. Alex's mind raced, piecing together the implications. The bond wasn't just symbolic. It rewrote genetics, allowing cross-species compatibility where none should exist. Scans projected on holographic displays confirmed it. A life form, hybrid, growing within her. "You impregnated me, human," she declared, the words hanging like a thunderclap. Her violet eyes blazed with fury, but beneath it vulnerability shimmered. Pregnancy among Zorathians was rare and risky, with queens facing heightened dangers, organ rejection, energy drains that could prove fatal. A hybrid amplified those perils exponentially. Alex staggered back, his world tilting. "That's impossible. I didn't intend." But Lyriel cut him off, rising from her throne with graceful menace. "Intent matters not. The bond chose us, or the chaos did. Now I carry your child, a being that defies our laws and biology." Her advisors murmured, one suggesting termination, but she silenced them with a glare. Politically, this was a catastrophe. Rivals would claim weakness. Traditionalists demand her abdication. "You will not leave this palace," she commanded. "You are confined here until I decide your fate and ours." Guards stepped forward, but Alex raised a hand. "I won't run. This is my responsibility too." Her expression softened fractionally, surprise flickering across her features. As he was led to opulent quarters, rooms with walls that adjusted to his preferences, views of starry vistas, he felt the bond tug again, a thread of shared destiny pulling them closer. The confinement was luxurious yet isolating. Alex's suite included a private lab, access to Zorathian databases, and meals that adapted to human tastes. But freedom was illusory. Invisible fields barred exits and guards patrolled discreetly. He dove into research, poring over texts on the sovereign bond. It was more than biology. It fostered empathy, allowing partners to sense emotions, share dreams. That night, as he lay on a bed that molded to his form, a vision invaded his sleep. Lyriel's memories, fragments of her childhood in the crystal palaces, her ascension after her mother's untimely death in a similar rite gone wrong. He awoke with a start, heart aching for her solitude. The next day a physician arrived, a Zorathian healer named Elowen, her skin a calm azure. "The Queen requests your participation in medical consultations," she explained. Alex nodded, intrigued, despite the circumstances. Their first joint session occurred in a healing chamber, where bioluminescent pools reflected diagnostic holograms. Lyriel entered, her robes concealing any physical changes, but the bond betrayed her fatigue. "Human medicine may offer insights," she said curtly. As they reviewed scans, the fetus appeared, a tiny form with Zorathian luminescence and human-like limbs. "Viability is uncertain," Elowen noted. "Risks include symbiotic rejection." Alex suggested human prenatal techniques, adapting them to Zorathian physiology. Lyriel listened, her anger thawing into reluctant respect. "You are not as ignorant as I feared," she admitted. As the session ended, she lingered, her gaze meeting his. "Why did you shield me during the chaos?" Alex replied honestly. "It felt right, like I had no choice." She nodded, a spark of understanding passing between them. Evenings brought solitude, but also opportunity. Alex explored the palace gardens virtually, marveling at flowers that sang lullabies. One night, a soft knock echoed. Lirel, unannounced. "I cannot sleep," she confessed, entering with hesitant grace. They sat by a window overlooking the twin moons, sharing stories. She spoke of Zorath's history, wars won through bonds like theirs. He shared Earth's tales of love defying odds. The conversation flowed, the bond weaving their words into intimacy. "This child terrifies me," she whispered. "Queens do not show weakness." Alex reached out, his hand brushing hers, a jolt of electricity warm and inviting. "Strength is in facing fear together." She pulled away, but not before a flicker of longing crossed her features. As days blurred, their interactions deepened. Medical progress brought hope. Hybrid stability improved with combined therapies. Yet political whispers grew louder, advisors plotting, rivals scheming. Lirel confided in him during a late-night walk in the atrium, now repaired. "They see this as my downfall." Alex vowed, "Then we'll prove them wrong." In that moment, anger gave way to alliance, the bond transforming confinement into a fragile partnership. But shadows loomed, a traitor in the court, perhaps the saboteur still at large. Alex felt it through the link, a danger closing in, threatening not just them, but the life they had unwittingly created. The palace of Zorath Prime never truly slept. Its crystalline corridors glowed with a perpetual twilight, veins of light pulsing in slow, meditative rhythms that mirrored the planet's twin heartbeats. The twin suns rising and setting in delicate synchrony. Dr. Elias Thorne, once Alex, but the bond had subtly reshaped even his name in Lirel's private thoughts, paced the length of his suite, the floor warming beneath his bare feet in response to his agitation. 3 weeks had passed since the Queen's proclamation, and confinement had begun to feel less like punishment and more like an exquisite, torturous limbo. Every morning he woke with fragments of her dreams clinging to him, the weight of a crown too heavy, the echo of a mother's final breath during a failed rite centuries ago, the secret fear that this hybrid child might unravel everything she had built. He stood at the viewport watching auroras twist across the indigo sky like living silk. The bond had grown stronger, no longer mere flickers, but steady currents. When Lirel was angry in council, he felt the heat rise in his own chest. When she allowed herself a rare moment of quiet wonder at the growing life inside her, a soft glow spread through him. Warming places he hadn't known were cold. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. He had tried to keep distance, professional, courteous, but the bond laughed at such boundaries. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door parted like liquid glass, revealing Queen Lirel herself. She wore no ceremonial robes tonight, only a simple shift of midnight blue filament that clung to her like mist, accentuating the gentle curve that had begun to appear at her abdomen. Her ears lifted slightly in what he now recognized as cautious hope, rather than regal poise. "Walk with me," she said. The command softened into something closer to invitation. Elias nodded, falling into step beside her as they moved through private passages known only to the royal line. They descended into the undergarden, a subterranean paradise few outsiders ever saw. Bioluminescent orchids bloomed in impossible colors along walls of living quartz. Streams of liquid light flowed upward in defiance of gravity, carrying petals that sang in faint, harmonious tones. Lirel paused beside a pool whose surface reflected not their faces but constellations that had not yet been born. "This place was my refuge when I first took the throne," she murmured. "Here I could pretend the weight did not exist." Elias watched her reflection ripple, the violet of her eyes deepening to plum. "And now?" he asked quietly. She turned to him, the movement so graceful it stole his breath. "Now the weight has doubled. And yet, it feels lighter when you are near." The admission hung between them, fragile as spun crystal. Elias reached out instinctively, his fingers brushing the back of her hand. The contact sent a shiver through both of them, warmth blooming where skin met skin, then deeper, threading through veins and nerves until it felt as though their heartbeats synchronized. Lyrael did not pull away. Instead, she turned her palm upward, letting their fingers lace together. For long minutes they stood like that, two silhouettes framed by glowing flora, the bond weaving silent poetry between them. But peace was fleeting on Zorath Prime. As they resumed walking, Lyrael's voice dropped to a near whisper. There are those who would see this child destroyed before it draws breath, not out of hatred for you, Elias, but fear of what it represents. A queen bearing a half-human heir threatens centuries of purity doctrine. My cousin, Lord Varith, leads the traditionalist faction. He has already whispered poison into enough ears. Elias felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Then we protect what we've created. Together. She glanced at him, surprise flickering across her features before it melted into something softer, almost tender. You speak as though this is already yours to defend. He met her gaze steadily. Isn't it? They emerged into a moonlit atrium where night-blooming vines released fragrance like distant music. Lyrael stopped beneath a canopy of star-shaped blossoms that drifted downward like slow snow. The physicians say the child is stable for now. Your human immunosuppressants combined with our resonance therapy have slowed the rejection cascade. But stability is not certainty. She placed a hand over the subtle swell of her abdomen. I feel it move sometimes. Tiny pulses of light like stars igniting inside me. It frightens me how much I already love it. The confession was raw, unguarded. Elias stepped closer until only breath separated them. Then let me help carry that love. Let me stand beside you, not as prisoner, but as partner. For a heartbeat, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she lifted her other hand to trace the line of his jaw, her touch feather-light, yet searing. You do not understand what you ask. To stand beside a Zorathian queen is to accept chains no less binding than the ones that hold you here. The bond will only deepen. Your thoughts, your pain, your joy, they will become mine, and mine yours. There will be no secrets, no retreat. Elias covered her hand with his own, pressing it gently against his cheek. I've spent my life chasing knowledge across galaxies, always one step ahead of attachment. Maybe I was running toward this moment without knowing it. Lyrael's breath caught. In the starlight, her skin shimmered through shades of rose and gold. Colors he had learned signified longing among her people. She leaned in until their foreheads touched, a gesture of profound intimacy in Zorathian custom. The bond flared bright, flooding them both with shared sensation. The rapid flutter of her hearts, the steady thunder of his, the quiet miracle growing between them. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. Stay with me tonight, not as captive, as mine. They returned to her private chambers, a vast space where walls became windows to nebulae, where the bed was a living cradle of silk and memory foam vines. No words were needed. Clothes fell away like shed illusions. Skin met skin, his warm bronze against her shifting silver violet, and the universe narrowed to the space between heartbeats. Every touch was amplified by the bond. When he kissed the curve of her throat, she tasted starlight on his lips. When her fingers mapped the planes of his back, he felt echoes of her pleasure ripple through his own nerves. They moved together with a reverence that bordered on worship, slow and deliberate, learning each other as though mapping uncharted constellations. Afterward they lay entwined, her head on his chest, listening to the dual rhythm of his heart and the tiny, luminous pulses from within her. I feared this would feel like violation, she whispered into the dark. Instead, it feels like coming home. Elias stroked her hair, marveling at its texture, fine as spider silk yet warm as sunlight. Then let this be our beginning, not our sentence. But dawn brought shadows. A coded message arrived during their shared breakfast. Fresh fruit that sang when bitten, nectar that tasted of forgotten summers. Lord Varith had called an emergency conclave, demanding the queen appear and explain the anomaly growing in her womb. Rumors already spread through the crystal districts. The human had bewitched her. The child would be abomination. The throne must pass to purer blood. Lyrael's face hardened into regal lines, but Elias felt the tremor beneath. Fear not for herself, but for the fragile life they guarded. I will face them, she declared, and you will stand at my side. Elias nodded, resolve settling like armor. Always. Yet as preparations began, a darker thread tugged at the bond. Someone close, someone trusted, harbored betrayal. The saboteur from the Rite of Harmony had not vanished. They waited, patient and venomous, for the perfect moment to strike. That night, as Lyrael slept curled against him, Elias remained awake, staring at the nebulae beyond the window. The child stirred, a gentle flare of light he could almost see through her skin, and he placed his hand over hers, protective instinct surging fierce and primal. Whatever storm approached, he would weather it. For her, for them, for the impossible family fate had forged in fire and starlight. The conclave chamber of Zorath Prime was a marvel of living architecture, carved from a single colossal geode whose inner walls shimmered with veins of amethyst and sapphire. Thousands of crystal facets caught and refracted the light of hovering orbs, creating an illusion that the entire room floated among stars. Today, those stars felt cold. Rows of tiered seats rose in concentric circles, filled with the elite of Zorathian society, nobles in robes that shifted like liquid mercury, military commanders whose armor pulsed with restrained energy fields, scholars whose skin displayed scrolling runes of ancient texts. At the center stood the obsidian dais, a black mirror polished to perfect reflection, where Queen Lyrael would face judgment. Elias Thorne walked beside her down the central aisle, no longer flanked by guards but presented openly as her chosen consort. Whispers followed them like smoke, some curious, some venomous. He wore a ceremonial tunic of deep indigo, threaded with silver filaments that matched the subtle glow now visible beneath Lyrael's own skin, a sign the hybrid pregnancy had progressed to the luminescence phase. Her hand rested lightly on the crook of his arm, a public gesture of alliance that sent ripples through the assembly. Through the bond, he felt her steady herself, hearts racing, yet resolve like tempered crystal. Lord Vareth awaited them on the dais, tall even by Zorathian standards, his skin a perpetual storm gray, ears sharp and unadorned. His violet eyes, so like Lyrael's yet stripped of warmth, fixed on Elias with undisguised contempt. The human stands where only the blood-bound may tread, he announced, voice carrying without effort. This alone is sacrilege. Murmurs rose, quickly silenced as Lyrael ascended the steps and took her place at the center of the mirror. Elias remained one pace behind and to her right, a silent sentinel. Speak your charge clearly, cousin, Lyrael commanded, her tone calm as still water. Or do you prefer rumor to reason? Vareth gestured, and holographic projections bloomed above the dais, footage of the sabotaged Rite of Harmony, slowed to show the precise moment the bioenergy surge struck, the instant Elias shielded her, the cocoon of light that sealed the sovereign bond. Another sequence displayed medical scans, Lyrael's womb, the tiny hybrid form pulsing with dual signatures, Zorathian resonance waves intertwined with human neural patterns. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The queen has been compromised, Vareth declared. This thing she carries is not pure Zorathian. It cannot inherit. Tradition demands either excision or abdication. I move for both. Silence fell, heavy and expectant. Elias felt Lyrael's fury flare through the bond, hot and bright, yet she answered with measured grace. Tradition also speaks of the sovereign bond as sacred, a gift of the first queens who walked among the stars before our worlds were named. It chooses, not we. To sever what it has forged is to spit upon our origins. A scholar in pale robes rose. The bond has been dormant for 3 millennia. Its reawakening in this manner with an outsider suggests corruption, not destiny. Another voice, a military matriarch whose armor bore battle scars that glowed faintly. The child's genetic markers show enhanced adaptability. It could bridge our peoples in ways no treaty ever could. To destroy it is to destroy potential alliance. Debate ignited, voices overlapping in a symphony of passion and prejudice. Elias remained silent, but his presence was felt. Through the bond, Lyrael drew strength from him, his calm certainty, his refusal to flinch under hostile stares. When the arguments reached fever pitch, she raised one hand. Light flared along her fingertips, a queen's command that stilled the room instantly. "I will not abdicate," she said, "nor will I allow this life to be taken. The child is viable. Medical data, verified by healers of both our species, confirms it. Elias Thorne stands here not as invader, but as bondmate. His knowledge has already stabilized what would otherwise have failed. To reject him is to reject the very survival of the heir." Vareth's lips curled. "Then prove it. Let the human face trial by resonance. If the bond is true, he will endure the unveiling. If not, the falseness will be burned away, and with it any claim he holds." Elias felt Lyrael tense beside him. The unveiling was an ancient rite rarely invoked, designed to test the purity of a bond. It forced both participants into a shared mindscape where every secret, every doubt, every hidden wound was laid bare. To fail was not merely humiliation. The psychic feedback could shatter the weaker mind entirely. "I accept," Elias said before Lyrael could protest. His voice carried clearly across the chamber. Surprise rippled outward, shock that a human would volunteer for such a trial. Admiration from some, scorn from others. Lyrael turned to him, eyes wide with alarm. Through the bond he sent her a single, steady pulse. "Trust me." The rite was prepared swiftly. 2 crystal thrones rose from the obsidian floor, facing each other. Lyrael and Elias sat. Healers placed resonance crowns upon their heads, delicate filigrees that extended fine neural threads into the scalp. The lights dimmed until only the thrones glowed. Vareth intoned the ancient words, and the unveiling began. Reality folded. Elias found himself standing on a vast plain of mirrored glass beneath a sky fractured into countless colors. Lyrael appeared opposite him, clad in flowing light rather than fabric. Around them, memories rose like mist, her childhood laughter echoing through crystal halls, the day she watched her mother die in a failed bonding, the loneliness of rule, the secret wish for someone who would see her, not the crown, but her. He felt her see his own past, a childhood on Earth spent staring at stars through a cracked telescope, the loss of his parents in a shuttle accident, the endless drive to understand other worlds, because his own had felt too small, too empty. Shame surfaced too. Moments of doubt, of selfishness, of fear that he would never be enough. Yet deeper still lay the core of them both. Wonder. Her awe at the first time she touched a star map and felt the galaxy breathe. His joy the night he discovered microbial life on a dead moon and realized he was not alone in the universe. These truths met and merged, weaving tighter than any physical embrace. Then came the test. Shadows coalesced, doubts given form. For Lyrael, visions of the child growing monstrous, tearing her apart from within, the empire crumbling because she chose love over duty. For Elias, images of being cast out, Lyrael turning cold, the bond revealed as illusion, himself reduced to nothing more than a tool discarded once the child was born. They faced these phantoms together. Lyrael reached across the divide, her hand finding his. "I choose you," she said, voice trembling yet certain. "Not because the bond forces me, because I see you." Elias squeezed her fingers. "And I choose you, not out of obligation, but because every star I ever chased led here to this moment to you." The shadows shattered like glass. Light exploded outward, warm and blinding. When vision returned, they were back on the thrones, crowns cooling, the chamber utterly silent. Vareth's face was ashen. The military matriarch nodded once, respect clear in her posture. The scholar bowed deeply. Lyrael rose first, extending her hand to Elias. He took it, standing beside her as equal. "The bond is true," she declared. "Let any who still doubt speak now." None did. Yet triumph was short-lived. As the assembly dispersed, a healer hurried forward, expression grave. She whispered to Lyrael. Elias felt the sudden spike of alarm through the bond before the words reached him. The child's resonance has shifted, an energy surge possibly triggered by the unveiling. We must return to the healing chambers immediately. They hurried through corridors that now seemed too long, too bright. In the medical suite, scans flared red. The tiny form within Lyrael flickered erratically, light dimming then flaring too bright. Elowen, their trusted physician, worked frantically. "It's drawing too much from you both." The bond amplified the trial's strain. "If we don't stabilize it within hours." Elias knelt beside Lyrael as she lay on the cushioned cradle, her hand gripping his with desperate strength. "Stay with me," she whispered. He pressed his forehead to hers. "Always." Outside the chamber doors, unseen, a figure watched. Cloaked. Silent. The true saboteur, patient until now, smiled thinly. The child's distress was no accident. And the next move would be final. The healing chamber had become their universe. Walls of translucent crystal pulsed in time with Lyrael's labored breathing, casting shifting patterns of aquamarine and rose across the two figures entwined on the levitating cradle. Medical orbs hovered like anxious moons, feeding data streams into holographic ribbons that danced above them. Elias Thorne knelt at Lyrael's side, one hand pressed to her abdomen where the child's light flickered erratically, bright, then dim, bright again like a star fighting to be born. Sweat beaded on her silver-violet skin, darkening it to bruised twilight. Through the bond he felt every spike of pain as though it were his own, every desperate pull of energy, as the tiny life within her drew from both parents to survive. Elowen moved with quiet precision, her azure hands tracing resonance patterns over Lyrael's body. The surge from the unveiling overloaded the symbiotic link, she explained in a low voice. "The child is trying to stabilize by pulling harder, but it's draining you both too quickly. We need to balance the flow, equalize the draw, or we lose them all." Elias nodded, throat tight. "Tell me what to do." The healer met his gaze. "You must enter deep resonance with her. Open the bond completely. Let her take from you what she needs, and you draw from her strength in return. It has never been attempted with a human before. The risk is catastrophic." Lyrael's fingers found his, squeezing with surprising force. "No," she rasped. "I will not risk you." But her eyes, those endless violet pools, betrayed her. Fear warred with love, and beneath both lay fierce determination. Elias leaned down until their foreheads touched. "We're already risked, my love. Every breath since the rite has been borrowed time. If we don't try now, there is no later." A tear slipped from the corner of her eye, shimmering like liquid starlight. She nodded once. Elowen guided them. She placed their joined hands over the center of Lyrael's abdomen, then positioned additional resonance crystals at cardinal points around the cradle. Soft chimes filled the air as the crystals began to sing, a low harmonic tone that vibrated through bone and soul. "Breathe together," Elowen instructed. "In, hold, out. Deeper each cycle. Let the bond become a bridge, not a chain." They breathed. Inhale. The chamber's light dimmed as though the palace itself held its breath. Exhale. A faint glow began at their joined hands, spreading upward along arms, across chests, until their entire bodies were outlined in soft radiance. Elias felt the bond widen, no longer a thread but a river, rushing wild, alive. Images flashed between them, shared memories of quiet nights in the undergarden, the first tentative kiss beneath drifting blossoms, the moment during the unveiling when doubt had shattered and certainty took its place. Deeper still, her terror of losing control, his lifelong fear of being truly seen. They offered these wounds to each other without reservation. The child responded. The flickering light steadied, drawing from the balanced stream they now provided. Lyrael gasped, arching slightly as fresh energy coursed through her. Elias felt it too, an influx of Zorathian vitality, bright and electric, knitting together places inside him he hadn't known were frayed. Pain receded, replaced by a profound, almost holy warmth. Their heartbeats, his single, hers dual, found perfect synchrony with the tiny triple rhythm now beating strong beneath their hands. Hours passed, though time lost meaning. When the crystals finally quieted and the glow settled into a gentle, steady luminescence, Elowen stepped back, tears tracing silver paths down her cheeks. It is done. The child is stable, more than stable. The resonance has fused perfectly. You have healed each other. Lyriel turned her head to look at Elias. Exhaustion etched her features, yet her eyes shone with something new. Peace. You stayed, she whispered. He brushed damp strands of hair from her face. I told you. Always. Dawn broke across Zorath Prime, twin suns rising in a blaze of gold and rose. Word of the stabilization spread through the palace like wildfire through crystal forests. By mid-morning, the grand atrium filled once more, though this time not with judgment, but celebration. Nobles, warriors, scholars, even common folk from the lower districts gathered beneath the repaired canopy of living vines. Lord Varith stood at the edge of the crowd, face unreadable, flanked by those who had once cheered his calls for purity. He had lost. The bond's triumph was undeniable. Lyriel appeared at the head of the great staircase, no longer in concealing robes but in a flowing gown of translucent silk that revealed the gentle, luminous curve of her pregnancy. The child's light shone softly through her skin, a beacon of hybrid hope. Elias walked at her side, hand resting protectively at the small of her back. No guard separated them from the people. The bond itself had become their shield. She raised both hands. Silence fell instantly. My people, she began, voice carrying clear and strong. Today we stand at the edge of an ending and a beginning. The sovereign bond, long thought lost, has returned. Not as relic, but as evolution. This child, born of Zorath and Earth, is proof that our strength lies not in isolation, but in connection. I will not hide what fate has given us. I will not bow to fear. Instead, I offer you a new path, one where difference becomes our greatest alliance. Murmurs rose, then cheers, first scattered, then thunderous. Even Varith inclined his head, a gesture of reluctant acceptance. The saboteur, revealed at last as a minor court physician who had planted the original devices out of misguided zeal for purity, had been quietly arrested during the night. His confession, extracted under resonance scan, closed the final shadow. As the celebration swelled, music rising from crystal chimes, dancers swirling in patterns that mimicked orbiting stars, Lyriel drew Elias aside to a private balcony overlooking the shimmering cityscape. The twin suns bathed them in golden light. She turned to him, taking both his hands in hers. I once believed a queen could only rule alone, she said softly. That love was a luxury I could not afford. You have shown me otherwise. She placed his palm over her heart, where the dual beats echoed against his skin. This child will be heir to two worlds. And you are my heart's true sovereign. Elias smiled, the sound of joy breaking free after so many weeks of tension. Then let me be yours in every way that matters. He drew her close, kissing her with slow, reverent tenderness. The bond sang between them, bright, whole, unbreakable. Months later, under a sky ablaze with auroras, the child came into being, not in pain or fear, but in a burst of pure light that lit the birthing chamber like a newborn sun. A daughter, skin shimmering between silver and warm bronze, eyes violet flecked with gold, tiny ears that twitched at every sound. They named her Aeloria, meaning Bridge of Stars. As Lyriel cradled their daughter and Elias wrapped protective arms around them both, the palace, indeed the entire planet, seemed to exhale in wonder. The old ways had not been discarded. They had been expanded, enriched, made new. In the quiet after, when Aeloria slept between them, Lyriel whispered against Elias's chest, You came to my world as emissary. You leave it as king in all but title. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I came for knowledge. I stayed for you. And I will never leave again. Outside, Zorath Prime turned gently on its axis. Twin suns watching over a future no longer written in isolation. but in the beautiful, boundless language of two hearts that had dared to become one.
Segunda fila y hay una tercera fila, cabrón. Chingas a tu madre, güey. Vete a la verga, güey. Pásate de verga, mamón. 3 putas filas, güey.
No venden chevechas.
Sí, pero quiero una cosita.
ALV.
Sí, se pasaron de verga, güey.
Busca un cocon que te lo venda una maid.
No porque sale más caro.
I can't click them at the same time. My what?
Era un Halo, un zorro, una Power de Chainsaw Man, güey.
No importa que te le ponga polvos de maid o fluidos. Entonces adentro está muy grande para mucha gente. Por
Sí.
curiosidad, ¿has visto un Terian?
Terian no, pero furro sí. Creo que aquí no existen los Terians, güey. Ese, güey.
Sorry, I'm paying attention. It's okay, I got inducted.
Vale, verga.
Te hubieras ido a acampar desde ayer para ser el primero.
Nah, pues no tendría mucho sentido quedarme aquí a esperar, güey, la verdad. Qué flojera. Ya mero entramos. ¿Cómo que no? ¿Ese Terian que está ahí de blanco y negro? ¿Cuál, güey? Yo no veo ninguno.
Buenas, ¿cómo va eso? Rieren.
¿Qué onda? Varelas, ya mero entramos, ya
Le
mero.
hubieras hecho como en México, hubieras dejado tu sillita para apartar el lugar.
Nah, qué naco, güey, o sea, qué pedo, paps. Le iba a decir al vato de aquí enfrente, güey, que se me cuidara llegar para allá al 7-Eleven, pero ya vamos a llegar, güey. So, no le veo el punto, güey, si aguanto otros 5 minutos. Si aguanto otros 5 minutos, güey. Si aguanto otros 5 minutos. No hay pedo. Casi una hora formados, ¿eh? Una puta hora formados, güey.
El
Mira.
equipo Rocket ahí los vi.
Sí. No mames.
Vas a comer adentro.
Ni de pedo, no. Por eso comí la hamburguesa. Mira un Ace. Le faltó el tatuaje de Ace. Mira la primera Nico Robin que vemos, güey. A huevo. La mayoría de los cosplayers no los conozco, güey. O puede ser que nomás vienen estéticas.
Mucho Peter Griffin.
¿Vi uno? Sí.
So we go on this line to hold and go on the other line.
Por eso gritaron.
Go back over.
Otro pendejo, pite, güey. Se pasó de verga. Otro Jake, güey. No, mames, ya nos tocó el sol, güey. Lo bueno que traigo la
Es
faldita,
raro
güey.
no haber visto a ninguno de Ataque a los Titanes.
Ey. Atacan
No
a lo
mucho
mejor sí.
sol.
Otro Sonic, güey.
Ingatu.
No, that's naked. That's naked. No, but then I can say, no, that's not. Oh, yeah. So you goofed out.
Si no los leo el mensaje, ¿saben por qué?
Si hay goticas.
Sí. Ahora sí hay que salernos como pendejos, güey.
Se te va a quitar lo güerito.
Va a valer madres, güey. Va a ser color humilde. Ay, güey. Ah, está perros cosplay. Mira una de Minecraft.
No
sé
te
cómo se
volverás color Deku.
llama. Ese güey. Déjalo en paz, güey. Déjalo en paz, cabrón. A la verga, están descalzas, güey, no mames. Vete a la verga, güey. A la verga, o sea, pinche piso está bien caliente y están descalzas, cabrón. Chingas a tu madre, güey.
Que ya empiece, ya quiero ver góticas bien chichonas, jajaja.
Que no, que no, que no.
A ver, patas. Yo no tengo la culpa que haya nacido color oscuro.
¿Cómo?
En esas convenciones se puede ir de, por ejemplo, Homelander.
Sí, ¿por qué no? Ay, qué naco, güey, ir descalza, cabrón. ¿Por qué vas descalza, señora? Vete a la verga.